Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet B Rayne. My guest today is Terry Tucker. He is a speaker, an author, a podcast guest on the topic of mindset and self-development. Among his diverse professional roles, Terry has been a marketing executive, a hospital administrator, a SWAT Hostage Negotiator, and for the past 13 years, a cancer warrior. He is the author of Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, and the 4 Truths, a lie, ancient wisdom for living, your modern purpose. So how to turn up the volume on your intuition, for we all have intuition and can learn how to hear it better and live a magical life. A magical wife. You need a magical wife. No. It is early in the morning and I'm having so much fun. Terry is also in Colorado, which I get very few people on the podcast that are not team members that are actually in my state. So I'm excited. He's on one side of Denver and I'm on the other side of Denver today. And so Terry, welcome to the show.
Violet, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Well, you have a very wide range of past experiences, a SWAT hostage negotiator and a hospital administrator. Your skill sets have taken you in lots of different roads and travels along the way.
It has. And you're right. You know, if you look at my resume, it kind of looks like a Super Bowl went off in a room. You know, it's banging all over the place. But there is kind of a backstory to it. So my paternal grandfather was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. And in 1933, he was shot in the line of duty. It was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad, who was an infant at the time, always remembered the stories my grandmother told of that knock on the door, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us, your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in sort of following in my grandfather's footsteps, my dad was absolutely not. You're going to college, you're going to major in business, you're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's the life my father wanted me to live. That's not the life that I felt I was born to live. So when I graduated from college, I had a choice. My father was dying of cancer. I could have said, hey, Dad, I know you're dying. Sorry, I'm going to go blaze my own trail and get into law enforcement. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. So understanding that backstory, my first couple jobs were in business. And I sort of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited till my father passed away and I followed my dream. And honestly, Violet, that's one of the things I'm most proud of in my life is that I never let my dream die. I mean, I was a 37-year-old rookie police officer, which by most accounts is pretty old to be getting into that line of work, but it was something I knew I was supposed to do. I knew I would do it. I just didn't know when I would do it.
Wow, what a big story. And what an influence our family and our parents can have on us on the decisions that we make in our lives. So as parents, sometimes we push our children in areas that maybe they weren't interested in doing to start with.
Yeah, I mean, you know, think about kids. And a lot of times when I talk to young people, it's like you don't have to have it all figured out at 17 and 18 years old. You know, I didn't. I majored in business because my dad told me to major in business. And yes, I learned a lot, but I was very interested in the law. And so if I had to do it over again, I might have majored in political science or English or something like that. But at 18 years old, I went to college on a basketball scholarship. In all honesty, I was more interested in playing basketball than I was going to class. A degree was kind of a byproduct of my athletic scholarship, but it was just something, I'm still trying to figure life out. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to go, and I certainly didn't know how I was going to get there.
Well, and now you've written all these great books. What took you to being an author and sharing, what you've learned along the way? Because I'm sure your books are just filled with things that you've learned and all these experiences.
Exactly. They are. And if you would have told me in high school or even college that I would have written a book, let alone two, I would have told you were nuts. It's like there's absolutely no way that I am going to write a book. But my first book, Sustainable Excellence, was really born out of two conversations I had. I'd been a girls' high school basketball coach when we lived in Texas. And I had one of my former players move to the area here in Colorado where my wife and I live. And with her fiance, and the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And Violet, she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, "Well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason or the reasons you were put on the face of this earth. And there is a reason you're here, finding those reasons, living those reasons." And so that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me on social media and he said, "What do you think are the most important things I should learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life?" And Violet, I didn't want to get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give them sort of the cliches that we all know. And so I spent some time just thinking about it, taking some notes, and eventually kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath this principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. So I had my leg amputated as part of my cancer journey in 2020. So during the 4 to 5 month period where I was healing from that amputation, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories. And they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be. The other books, Four Truths and a Lie, which is the most recent book, is a book that I always knew I was going to write. Sustainable excellence was about success. And I knew inside me there was another book that also began with the letter S, and that was significance. Success is what we do for ourselves. Significance is what we do for other people. So I knew that was the second book, and I started writing that around Thanksgiving 2023 and released it in September of 2025.
Wow, what a journey. What a journey on taking you down this path. So you talk about the four truths: control your mind or it will control you. Talk about what you mean by control your mind.
Yeah, this is something I learned, I think, early in my life. When I was around 15, I'd had 3 knee surgeries in high school. And I remember when I went back playing after the second surgery, my brain, my mind was putting all kinds of negative thoughts into my mind. Things like, you're probably a step slower because of your surgeries, and college coaches aren't going to be interested in recruiting you. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm still playing at an elite level, and college coaches are still reaching out about the possibility of playing for their team. So I learned early that I needed to sort of change the paradigm, to change what was going on in my mind. And the Cleveland Clinic, and I know a lot of people do this, but I always use the Cleveland Clinic numbers. The Cleveland Clinic estimates that we have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts that pass through our mind every day. 95% of those thoughts are previous thoughts, things we've thought about before. So on any given day, we have roughly 3,500 new thoughts that pass through our mind. And our minds operate at a speed of about 1,000 words a minute. Now, Violet, I'm old enough to remember when I was in high school, I took typing. And so you were graded on how many words per minute you could type. I could type nowhere near 1,000 words. I mean, I was lucky if I could type 40 words a minute. But given all those thoughts, your mind can still hold only one thought at a time. Why would you want to make that a negative thought? The problem with most of us, and I am guilty of this so much in my life, is that we think with our fears and our insecurities instead of using our minds. And I think that's incredibly important because our mammalian brains, they're designed to keep us safe. They're designed to keep us alive. So, Violet, if you got up this morning and said, okay, I'm going to go skydiving, your brain would start, wait a minute, Violet, your plane might crash, your parachute may not. It would start listing all the reasons why you shouldn't do something. The problem is, and we all know this, the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to get better, the only way you're going to improve in your life is if you step outside those comfort zones and you do things that make you uncomfortable. So controlling your mind is something that we all need to do. And I'll end with this. We've got all these thoughts passing through our minds. These thoughts are arbitrary. They have no meaning whatsoever unless we start thinking about them. So thoughts are neutral, they're arbitrary. Thinking is where we get into trouble. Thinking is where we say, oh, wait a minute, there's an emotion attached to that, or there's a feeling attached to that, or there's an event attached to that. Could be a good event, could be a bad event. And now our minds start kind of dwelling on those kind of things. And so you've got to be cognizant of that. And if it's negative, you got to change that because we all talk to ourselves. Be careful of how you talk to yourself because eventually you'll either get something positive out of it or something negative out of it.
And the key here is awareness because most of the time we are so distracted and we have so many things around us. I call it noise. The TV, the radio, conversations, people, everything around. We have this to-do list that we're running through our mind. We're constantly thinking about what we need to do. But most of the time, your subconscious is what's guiding your day-to-day, and you're not even aware of it. So I always tell people, think about the last time you drove home, and you got home and you went, wait a minute, I don't remember the last 45 minutes of this drive. Where was I? What was I doing? How did I get here? Well, your subconscious knows how to drive home. It knows how to get you in the driveway, how to pull into the garage. It knows all of that. And you come back into the present moment as soon as you get to the house, right? But you don't remember the other 45 minutes of how you got there. Think about what you're saying to yourself when you're not paying attention or present or really noticing. And by being present, you're going to start noticing what are you saying to yourself? What is going through your mind so that you can really think about saying more positive things, having more positive statements. Yes, I can do this. And yes, you're right. When we walk through our fears, when we go through those tough times, those challenges, those difficulties, that's when we grow, when we expand, when we learn. You know, most people shut down because they don't want to do that, right? They close down and it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hibernate in the house. If I don't leave the house, nothing will happen. Well, you're not going to grow that way. You're not going to evolve. You're not going to get to where you really want to be by shutting down and closing off. So you got to be alive and present in those moments. And it's hard for us today, especially as things are moving fast. Because even just before this podcast, I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, I have 5 minutes. Okay. And boom, I looked up and went, oh my God, it's time. And I'm not upstairs. Time moves so fast these days. And I know my husband says, you know, as you get older, after you turn 21, time runs fast. I believe it's running faster than it's ever run, and it has nothing to do with age. It just feels like time is moving so fast these days that if you're not paying attention, you will miss it, right? Can we believe that we're already in February 2026? I can't believe that. We just had the holiday, didn't we? Yesterday? Didn't that happen yesterday? So time moves so fast. So you also talk about embrace the pain and difficulty we all experience in life and use them to make you stronger, more resilient. Talk to us about your experiences and what you mean by that.
So, our brains are hardwired, as I just mentioned, to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So, to the brain, the status quo, the way things are right now, just kind of like you said, you stay in your house, everything's fine, everything's great. But as we just said, the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to improve is if you step outside those comfort zones and do things that make you uncomfortable. Let me offer this to your audience because I do this every day of my life. Every day, do at least one thing that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we unexpectedly get let go from our job. Like me, you find out you have a chronic or a terminal illness, you will be so much more resilient to handle those things than people who never step outside their comfort zones. One of the things that I enjoy doing is reading. And when I was in high school, I read a book called Farewell to Arms. It was written by Ernest Hemingway. And it's a fiction book, but it's kind of semi autobiographical about Hemingway's time as an ambulance driver for the Italian army during World War I. And there's a line in that book that I absolutely love. And the line is this: life breaks everyone. And afterward, many are stronger at the broken places. So just like if you were to break your arm and you would go to the ER and a doctor would put it in a cast, set it, put it in a cast, when that bone healed, it would be stronger at the area of the break than the rest of your arm. That's just a metaphor for life, for us, for all the challenges, for all the adversity, for all the difficulty that we experience in life. If you can keep moving forward, if you can keep working through that, eventually you are going to come out the other end and you're going to be stronger and be able to handle adversity better than people who never step outside their comfort zones.
Well, and you have people that get into those situations and those times in their life where everything seems to be crumbling around them. And you have choices. Life is about choice. Either you can crumble with the crumbles, right? And woe is me and be in despair and all of that. Or you can take a deep breath, step back, and go, okay, I have a choice on how I react and what I do next. What is the next step for me to move forward? And, those that are listening and it feels like your world is just crumbling around you and nothing is working, I believe it's divine trying to get you to move forward in something that you're terrified of, and they are shoving you forward because it's time for you to move out of that comfort zone that you've been sitting in, and they want you to grow and expand, and you came to do this and they are pushing you. And these are hard things. They're not easy things. There are times that we cry. There are times that we want to go out and throw something. There are times that we want to scream. There are times when we want to argue with whoever you believe in as your divine or higher force, that you want to fight with them and argue with them. Why me? All of those things are natural. What's not natural is to get stuck and not be able to move forward. They are trying to they're pushing us forward through something. And so allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to feel that pain for a minute. We all need that. Don't stuff it. Don't push it into your body. Express it, feel it, move through it in a healthy way, not a violent or abusive way, but feel it, move through it. And then start thinking about, what are my next steps? What do I need to do next? And move through it. I guarantee you, if you can do that, there is a blessing on the other side of that. And when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, my whole world is totally different. And it's better than it was before. It always happens that way if you can push through it. And you look back and go, why didn't I just do that 10 months before that, or 3 months, or whatever it is? It's going to push you forward to something different and better if you can look at it that way. We talk about the glass half full and the half empty. There is truth with that perspective. What are you seeing in that circumstance that is the blessing and positive? I love that.
Yeah,
So
well,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go
No, I was
ahead.
going to say it's finding meaning in your misery and finding the mission that you're supposed to learn from going through whatever difficult time. I don't believe we suffer in vain, that there is something we're supposed to learn, and I've learned a lot from almost 14 years now of cancer. And two of the biggest things I've learned is number one, I don't think you really know yourself until you've been tested by some form of adversity in your life. And the second thing I've learned, and I've had people ask me, if you could live your life over again without cancer, without having your foot amputated, without having your leg amputated, would you do it? And Violet, I don't think I would, because I think cancer has made me a much better human being.
Right? Isn't that interesting how that works out? You know, I talk a lot about, there have been several times in my life where everything in my life crumbled. I lost everything. I mean, I'm talking everything. My home, my cars, my relationships. I was homeless. I've been evicted. I've lost everything from a six-figure income all the way down to the ground, everything gone. And if I had to do it again, would I do it again? Yes, because I had to learn some lessons through that process, that the material world is not as important as we're led to believe that it is. Having that big house, that really nice car, that income, that title, it really is meaningless. It really has no value. You can't carry it with you when you leave this planet. You're not taking it with you. The things that are really important are the relationships and how you lived your life and how you affected people, and hopefully what you leave behind as a memory for others. That's the important thing. And sometimes we have to lose everything to really find that. So if you're in that place where everything's being destroyed or you're struggling, just step back for a minute and go, okay, what do I need to do next? What am I being asked to do? What am I being drawn to do? Because there's something pulling you to the next level and you're just not seeing it. And you have to get out of the dust to kind of see what is next, right? So you talk about what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of others, which is a little bit about what I was talking about. But share your perspective on, what do you leave behind? What do you want to leave behind, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I look at that kind of as a legacy truth. What are you leaving behind? And there's a great story. You probably remember at some point in your life, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, who educated so many young people on television, on his television show, including me growing up. So Fred Rogers died in 2003, and his family was going through his effects, and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written four simple words: life is for service. Violet, you and I we've probably seen these people. I know I have. So many people feel that they're born empty, and that when they get out of school and get into life, whatever that looks like for them, that then their job is to fill up their empty cell. I've got to, like you said, I've got to have the nicest home. I've got to drive the nicest car. I've got to have the latest gadgets and gizmos. And what I found is we're not born empty. We're born full with whatever we need to be successful in life, however you define that word, already inside us. We just need to find it, pull it out, and use it for our benefit. So our purpose in life should not be to fill ourselves up. Our purpose in life should be to empty ourselves out with our unique gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our families, of our friends, and of our communities. And when you change that paradigm, when you change the way you look at life, as opposed to what's in it for me or what can I get, because you're never going to fill yourself up. There's always going to be one other thing you're going after. If you change that paradigm to say, it's not about what I can get, It's about what I can give in my life. That's where you leave a lasting legacy with other people. And I'll end with this story. There's a psychology professor at the University of Chicago who does this experiment with his students. The idea is you go out and you get on a bus, and in 3 questions, you go deep with somebody. So I'm just going to make this up. So you get on a bus, sit down next to somebody. First question, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Second question, what do you do for a living? I'm a doctor. Third question, have you always wanted to be a doctor? They could say, no, I grew up on a farm and I wanted to be a veterinarian, but X, Y, and Z happened. Or my mother was a doctor, but died of breast cancer when she was 40. So I'm honoring her memory by becoming a doctor. Whatever they tell you, they're telling you their why, their purpose, their mission in life. And Violet, we don't go deep with people anymore. We don't have those deep connective relationships. You have deep relationships with people, you are going to leave a lasting impact on those individuals.
I love that. I love that. I love going deep. You know, my husband loves to talk. The people that know him, he loves to talk to people. There is not a stranger he has ever met. He knows everybody at our grocery store, everybody at our Starbucks, everybody at every business that's around our house. He knows them by first name. He'll go to a restaurant and ask for people by first name. He loves asking people who they are, what they do, what they do. And what I find fascinating in those conversations is 90% of them never ask him a question. 90% of the people he talks to never ask him questions. He's always asking them questions. And he's like, people love to tell you about themselves. They love to share their stories. So you're giving them an opportunity to do that. So it's always very interesting to me. And he really does care about, and then he comes home and tells me everybody's stories. You know, I met such and such at the grocery store and they're doing this and they're doing that. And I'm like, I don't even know these people. But he does. He does. He knows them from a very personal space. So I love that. You talk about your last one here is as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. So share a little bit about that with us today.
Sure. So I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but the way it works for me is that someday my pain, cancer pain, let's say, is going to end. You know, it may end through surgery, it may end through some new type of medication or treatment. Quite frankly, it may end when I die. But if I quit, if I give in, if I give up with pain, pain is always going to be a part of my life. There's a young man that my wife works with who is a former Navy SEAL, some of the toughest men in the world in terms of military training. And on my off weeks of treatment, he calls me just to check up on me, see how I'm doing. And we talk about all kinds of things. But one of the things we talk about is what the Navy SEALs call their 40% rule, which is if you're done, if you're at the end of your rope, if you can't go on, the SEALs believe you're only at 40% of your maximum and you still have another 60% left in reserve to give to yourself. So, you know, the next time you don't want to stay late at the office and make that call, or, you know, you don't want to take that class that makes you better, or whatever it is in your life that you don't want to do because it's uncomfortable. And we're kind of coming full circle again to, you know, control your mind. Understand that you're only at 40% of your maximum and you still have another 60% left in reserve to give to yourself.
I love that. I love that. So we've covered a lot of things today. And what I love about Sacred Magic Podcast is that we're giving you little tidbits that can change your life dramatically. And our tidbits today is pay attention to your mind and control your mind. Don't let it control you. Also, to understand, to embrace that pain and difficulty. If everything around you is crumbling around, it just means there's something beautiful on the other side. Pick up, figure out what the next step is, and move through it. And understand, what do you want to leave behind? What is your legacy? What do you want people to remember about you? And don't quit. Keep going. I love the 40% rule. Means that you got 60% more to do, or that can pull you out, or that you can touch into. These are great tidbits for anyone listening that you really want to change your life, because You have the power to do so. Thank you so much, Terry, for being on the show.
Violet, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
Well, thank you. And those that are listening, thank you for listening. I hope you'll like, comment, and share on your favorite channels. Whether you're watching or listening to, we would love to hear from you. Follow us on those favorite channels. We'd love to see you in a future episode. Have a sacred and magical day and week, and we hope to see you soon, either here or at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.